Archetypes are a key feature in VGC team building and pave the way into more success within competitive play. Welcome everybody to a brand new series. It's me Ketsu, and today we're going to be looking at archetypes within VGC and how they can help improve your VGC progress. Whether you're a new player trying to pick up the game or someone that's trying to relearn the ropes, I hope this video will help you. So to start things off, what is an archetype? Archetypes are the categories that your Pokemon can kind of fall into. And there's quite a few ways that this can happen. Weather, Trick Room, Tailwind, Hyper Offense, Stall, all of these are examples of archetypes within VGC. So we're not going to be diving into every single archetype because that's just going to take 40 minutes and we ain't got time for that. So if you want me to dive into more archetypes in the future, let me know by leaving a like down below, and maybe hitting that subscribe button helps me out a ton. And it's also the easiest way to make sure that you don't miss out on more videos just like this one. Weather comes into 4 subcategories: sun, rain, snow, and sand. Much like other archetypes in this video, all of them have their pros and cons. Things like boosting damage on specific moves or giving you certain stat buffs are just ways that weathers are really beneficial whenever you're building a VGC team. For example, some moves that can get buffed in the weather are things like Solar Beam and Archaludon's Electro Shot in the sun and the rain, respectively. Normally, these moves would take a single turn to quote-unquote charge, and then on the second turn, they would release said move. But in their respective weathers, they don't need to wait for that second turn to hit. They can hit immediately the first turn you click it. There are other moves that do other things like ignore accuracy. Things like Hurricane and Thunder aren't normally that accurate, but when they're in the rain, they are 100% accurate. Same thing goes for Blizzard in the snow. Right now, at the time of this recording, we are in Regulation H in the 2026 season, and there are a few weather setters within each respective field. Torkoal and Ninetales for the sun, Alolan Ninetales and a Bomber Snow for the snow, Tyranitar, Hippowdon, and I guess technically Sandaconda for the sand, and then Pelipper and Politoed for the rain. Now, all these Pokemon fall into something called automatic weather setters. This basically means that as soon as they enter the field, their respective weather conditions will just automatically come up. And a lot of people might think, well, what if you have 2 different weather setters? What happens then? Normally, the game picks it up in terms of speed order. So for example, if you had something like Alolan Ninetales and Torkoal, since Alolan Ninetales is faster, it would set up the snow first, and then Torkoal would set up the sun afterwards, meaning the sun would be the more dominant weather condition in this scenario. Now, there are also Pokemon that come under manual weather setters. This basically means that there are Pokemon that would need a move slot in order to get said weathers up and running. Examples of these would be Murkrow, Jumpluff, Whimsicott, and also Mandibuzz. There's a whole bunch of other different Pokemon that learn different weather moves, but try and focus on what can get it done either as fast as possible or as safely as possible. And finally, I'm going to give off what Pokemon are good in each respective weather condition. So first off, for rain, the obvious one is Archaludon. Archaludon is really good because it gets things like Electro Shot, which means that it gets a +1 special attack boost and manages to hit really hard at the same time, which is really good here. Another Pokemon is Basculegion because of its swift mobility, making sure that it can really wrap up games really quickly at the end, or maybe even do some damage at the start. Just makes things really easy for Basculegion to kind of move around and kind of be as free as possible. The same thing can be said for Hisuian Lilligant, which doubles its speed when it's in the sun, just makes it a really annoying Pokemon to deal with since it's one of the fastest Pokemon in this Regulation H format right now. It's just an absolute brute force of nature, and it is very threatening, especially with things like After You, which can make slow Pokemon like Torkoal that can set up the sun hit a lot faster than what you would usually expect it to do. Another Sun Team example is Charizard, since it can also hit really hard. Charizard even won a regional the last time Regulation H was allowed in Scarlet and Violet, which I did make a video on if you guys want to check that out. Hopefully I should put the link in the description below or the card up in the corner right now. But it's an amazing Pokemon that can hit really hard, and it is just a super fun way to get things going with the Sun Team as well. It's very easy to set up. Again, going by that speed factor that I said before with Basculegion and Lilligant, one for the sand is Lycanroc. Again, a Pokemon that can hit really hard. It's one of the fastest Pokemon that can help you in terms of sand. It's really nice here. Honorable mention would also be Houndstone, since Houndstone again is a really good Pokemon to go for as well. And finally, for the snow, my best bet here would probably be Baxcalibur. We've seen a few times with Alolan Ninetales and Baxcalibur in the past. Not exactly the best weather in my opinion, but at least it is an option there for you to take advantage of said weather condition. Next up are speed archetypes, and I'm going to try and combine them in as one as much as I can, but they both play tremendously differently and require different Pokemon in order to get these things set up. Trick Room is a very dominant archetype in this regulation, and it does tremendously well in pretty much any regulation. What Trick Room does is that it essentially twists the dimensions. What this means is that it just swaps the speed order. In Pokemon, speed order is very, very important because the fastest Pokemon normally ends up going first, and the slowest Pokemon normally ends up going last. But Trick Room flips that order. Now, there's a common trend in VGC where Pokemon that are really bulky and really strong are 9 times out of 10 really, really slow. There are restricted Pokemon, but we'll talk about that another time since we're not dealing with that right now. But Trick Room gives us the opportunity to flip that on its head. So not only is this Pokemon bulky and strong, but it can also be fast. It covers all 3 of these factors. The only drawback of Trick Room is that it's very predictable. It's kind of easy to tell when Trick Room is going to get played, and it's kind of easy to get set up on how to play it. So if someone's prepared enough, they can deny Trick Room outright, or they can just stall out the 5 turns of Trick Room that you get when you set it up in order to just overtake you when it goes back. So the whole strategy essentially relies on trying to take the game within 5 rounds, or if that doesn't work, at least either trying to wrap up the game as fast as possible afterwards, or if anything, set up Trick Room again, which is a lot harder later on in the game when your Pokemon are chipped away from HP. But on a good note, there are a lot of Pokemon that can actually set up Trick Room in the first place. Pokemon like Indeedee, Farigiraf, Gallade, Hatterene, and Porygon 2 are pretty much the main Trick Room setters that you would see in most of the meta today. And another good thing about Trick Room is that there are quite a few Pokemon that take really good advantage in this. Pokemon like Torkoal, both forms of Ursaluna, and Hatterene are essentially the Pokemon that are there to clean up the game. Their damage is incredibly strong, and they have really good moves to help you get rid of these Pokemon. Things like Guts Boosted Facade on Ursaluna, or things like Earthquake or Headlong Rush are just ways that can clear up Pokemon really, really easily. Torkoal having Eruption doing massive damage, also going into Terra Fire to boost that, as well as the Sun boosting Fire type moves like we mentioned previously, just makes this thing an absolute nuke of a Pokemon, especially in Trick Room. Ursaluna and Hatterene are just really good special attackers as well. There are also support Pokemon that really benefit for this as well, mainly Amoonguss. Since Amoonguss is really slow and has the attack Spore, which is a 100% accurate move that puts all of your Pokemon to sleep, it is a very, very nice way to make sure that your opponent's team essentially never moves or moves as little as possible. Either having to burn out resources like going into Terra Grass, or forcing your Pokemon to make a Pokemon beforehand that is specifically designed to take on Amoonguss, or at least to delay Amoonguss's effects. So now that we've covered Trick Room, I want to talk about the opposite direction, which is Tailwind. While Trick Room swaps the speed order, making slower Pokemon go first, Tailwind does the opposite and makes faster Pokemon even faster by doubling their speed. This is especially useful because there might be Pokemon that you want to have in the forefront that does a lot of good damage, but isn't exactly as fast as most other Pokemon. Pokemon like Sneasler and Dragapult are really, really fast, and you're going to want ways that can kind of get around them. Now, same thing as Trick Room, there's actually a lot of Pokemon that can set up Tailwind pretty easily, namely Whimsicott and Murkrow, because of their ability Prankster essentially allows them to bring up Tailwind before any other move in the game. It's really easy to get Tailwind set up with these 2 Pokemon, and they're technically Talonflame. Because of its Gale Wings ability, it allows flying type moves to have priority, which means Tailwind can technically also go before anything else, but Talonflame has to be on full HP. So things like a Fake Out would maybe hinder your thing, but because Talonflame is so ridiculously fast anyway, it's essentially a pseudo Prankster Pokemon. Now, there are good Pokemon that can have Tailwind as well, like Hydreigon, Volcarona, and Dragonite, but they don't essentially need Tailwind to make their whole strategy work. It's just a nice just-in-case move if your opponent is running too fast for you to keep up. Now, a lot of people are thinking, well, Ketsu, why are you putting both of these speed tiers together? They are both clearly different. One relies on slow Pokemon while the other relies on medium to fast Pokemon. Why are they together? It doesn't intertwine. Well, sometimes you can actually build teams that consist of both. This is what's known as Tail Room. Essentially what this means is that you have Pokemon that are catered to both scenarios for whichever mode you need. If your Pokemon's running with a team that is naturally faster than you, i.e. things that use items like Choice Scarf, or just naturally fast Pokemon like the aforementioned Sneasler and Dragapult, you kind of have Tailwind there to make sure your team can at least have a fighting chance. Or on the other hand, if you don't feel comfortable running toe-to-toe with speed, you can make things more comfortable for yourself and run Trick Room instead. This also works in the other side, where if your opponent is also running a Trick Room team, you can either have a Pokemon or 2 that can deal with Trick Room and can stand toe-to-toe within the Trick Room, or your Trick Room setter can actually do Trick Room again and reset the speed order. So if you are in Trick Room and use Trick Room again, it resets everything. So that is a nice way to counter Trick Room as well. So next up is Hyper Offense. Hyper Offense is literally what it says on the tin. It's Pokemon that just hit really hard, hit really fast, and just try and get the game done as fast as humanly possible. Most of the times these Pokemon would be abnormally fast, probably the fastest Pokemon in the format and possibly the strongest hitting Pokemon in the format as well. Essentially, it's just a case of what button can I click that can do the most damage in record time. Pokemon that fall under this category are Choice Band Dragapult, Sneasler, Choice Band Dragonite, and Choice Specs Goldengo. All four of these Pokemon hit really fast and really hard, and it is really difficult to keep track with them, especially with the allies that you get alongside them. And then lastly in today's video is stalling teams. Stalling teams are, again, pretty much straightforward. They are teams that are there to chip away at you over time and essentially never go down from your opponent. So most times this would kind of fall down to poisoning your opponent's team, or maybe doing moves that would chip away at them over time. Things like Leech Seed, Garganacl, Salt Cure, Curse, Sand Tomb, Fire Spin, you get the idea. The main Pokemon that this kind of falls into here is Garganacl, as I said before, with Salt Cure, and it also gets moves like Recover and Wide Guard just to keep you safe as well. Porygon 2 with Eviolite is another Pokemon that can also last a really long time because it's just so bulky, especially with that Eviolite. It also gets Recover as well, so it's just a really hard Pokemon to get rid of if you're not paying attention. And finally is Commander Dondozo as well. He gets a +2 stat on every single boost if Tatsugiri's next to him, and he's just got amazing HP, he's got amazing bulk, and if you give him leftovers, he just replenishes every single turn, and it is really hard to get rid of Dondozo again if you are not structured to take on Dondozo. Since not a lot of people want to go up against a stall team because it is so mentally taxing, especially in competitive play where you don't have to just face the team once, you have to technically face them up to 3 different times, it can put a lot of mental tax on them, which can work to your benefit. On the downside, much like Hyper Offense, if your opponent is ready to take on this team, or at least has the mental know-how to take on your team beforehand, it's not exactly going to be an easy run for you because there's lots of ways that they can run in and out of play. But let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments down below what archetype you like out of this video, and if there's nothing that you like in this video, let me know. We can cover some more in another time. I hope this helped give a little bit more insight into what you want out of your team, and of course guys, I will see you all in the next video. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all later. Okay, bye.